Welcome to Goddess State, where we are creating divine realities and building global brands. I'm so excited for our guest today, Nicole, Miss Hawaii, who's here to talk to us a lot about her shift from insomnia, depression, anxiety into this beautiful world of manifestation, Joe Dispenza's work, and what got her to winning the title of Miss Hawaii. So, welcome, Nicole. How are you today?
Aloha. I'm amazing. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I would love to know where your journey started with, opening your eyes up to manifestation.
Hmm. The very beginning, I would say, kind of started with my moving to Hawaii 3.5 years ago. My intro to spirituality was a book that I read when I was in kind of crisis mode right before I ever took a trip out here. And it was about your thoughts becoming things, right? A Mike Dooley book. And I was not spiritual at all before that. And I started seeing how like my affirmations were manifesting in the real world, right? And when I found Hawaii, it was just like a light switch went off. I went from being depressed to like more lit up than I had been in since childhood. And once I leaned into that and I moved out here, I picked up this phrase, everything works out in Hawaii. I just started saying it all the time, beating it into my head. And it wasn't because I was trying to manifest, it was truly because I felt that everything was so magical out here. And with that, all my friends picked up the phrase and they'd all look at me like, of course, everything works out in Hawaii. And the more I said it, the more random magic things would start to work out. And I started to believe in the power of our thoughts creating our reality.
What are some of those magical things that started to happen where you're like, my words are actually creating this lucky girl syndrome?
Everything just fell into place here. And people said when you move to Hawaii, Hawaii will either chew you up and spit you out, or the
Mm.
island will accept you. And I was accepted right away. Like the apartment I wanted fell into place. I would make friends like walking down the street. I'd literally find like $100 on the floor randomly and just be like, of course, when we're about to walk into dinner, awesome. And it was just kind of like all these divine timings and connections and mostly little things at that point. I wouldn't say there was like, but it was all these little things that were kind of building up and working toward much larger things that started to manifest once I finally escaped the matrix and quit my corporate job.
Where were you working before and what city were you living in?
So I lived in Tampa, Florida for most of my adult life. I was there for 17 years before I moved to Hawaii. Tampa was great to me for a while, but I outgrew it, I think. And I was in sales. I was a sales director for an automotive marketing company. So very, very, very different than what I'm doing now. And it was a grind. It was the hustle culture. I was trying to keep up with the dudes. I thought I was just as cool as them. I would, be running at a million miles an hour, puffing my chest to be just as strong and just as good. And I managed for a while until it radically destroyed me, sucked my soul out of me, burnt me out. It was a project.
Wow, yeah. It's so funny that you're talking about being in sales because obviously that's what I'm studying right now. And I'm like, wow, sales is so feminine, you would think, because it's all about persuasion and it's all about, attracting the right people. So you didn't have those feminine energies, I guess, in the corporate? No?
No, no, it was I also worked in the automotive industry, so I've always been in male-dominated industries on top of being a sales career, and I was one of the only female sales reps at the company. So, and my clients were all male, right? So I was in this very like competitive kind of ego mindset. And I was not, I actually rejected my feminine side for a really, really long time. I would say until 2 years ago. I saw it as a weakness. I don't have emotions. Like I suppressed my emotions. I didn't want to feel. We didn't do that in my family growing up. So it was just about how much can I push myself? How much money can I make? That's all I cared about at the time. And I was turning into a car dude, like you become the sum of the people you hang around. And I worked fully remote and then I was on the road with grimy, shisty general managers.
Wow.
So naturally, I was adapting a lot of their, traits and habits and behaviors and mindsets. So it wasn't good. It wasn't pretty.
How long would you say that you struggled with insomnia and depression and anxiety? Like, what was that like before your shift into this beautiful world of manifestation?
So, when I first started my sales career, I did really well with it for like a year or two. I was thriving off the numbers and the goals, right? And then, after about 2 years in, as most sales careers get, you kind of reach a plateau and you just have this moving target, right? That grows and grows and grows. And you're only one person that you can only satisfy, right? So, I started moving up the ranks, getting managerial roles, having people under me, but you keep chasing that external validation, right? That next thing, and it's a never-ending cycle of burnout. So I would work myself so hard, I'd get to the next step, and then next month your quota starts all over again, right? So eventually, I started to experience what I thought was anxiety and depression, and maybe it was, but it was more of an existential crisis, if you will. Like I was just like, what is, I have everything on paper, right? Like friends, family, great boyfriend, the job, all the money I want, this external, I look the way I want, but I felt so empty and unfulfilled. And it like other friends of mine were just like, that's what everybody does. You just go through and power through the job. And I couldn't fathom doing this for another 30 years, right? Like it wasn't an option. I couldn't handle it. So I would start seeing therapists, and of course, they would put me on prescriptions, the whole pharmaceutical thing. It didn't really help. Personally, my experience with traditional talk therapy also just made it worse. I didn't feel like I don't have any really trauma, I would say, in this lifetime, like big things. So there wasn't like we're just beating the problems into the ground really and like hammering them in. So none of that really helped. And then it developed into like this anxiety that was keeping me up all night. I couldn't turn my mind off for the life of me. So about 2 years into the sales career, I got on Ambien to sleep. And after trying everything else, like all the over the counter stuff, meditation, all the basics. And then I was like, give me something that's actually going to put me to sleep. The doctor puts me on Ambien, 10 milligrams, which is the highest you can take, which is basically the, most intense sleep drug. And I don't recall being forewarned that the maximum amount of time you can take it is 6 weeks. And that led me down a path of taking it every single night for 8 years. Needless to say,
Whoa, okay.
yeah,
Wow.
needless to say, there were a lot of issues when I finally figured this out. But I want to say it was maybe about 7 months after getting on Ambien that I ever had my first depression episode. So I was like age 30, and I was always very happy before that, very positive. Didn't really understand depression when other people went through it. So when this hit me, it was like, whoa, what is this, right? And at the time, I didn't really make the correlation between the Ambien and depression. I've later, long story, but we'll get there. I've later deducted that's probably part of it, on top of an unfulfilling career and all this other stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so I was having really, even with the sleeping pills, I would I'd be able to fall asleep, but I was having nightmares every night that I was being chased and killed. I was waking up in the middle of the night. Like I was not ever getting a good night of sleep, right? But the only thing that would put me to sleep was Ambien. So I took it every night because at least I'd get sleep and it turned my mind, if nothing else, it shut my mind off from the stress, anxiety, the pressure, meetings the next day. That eventually led to I still took it, right? I was still stressed. I'd go in these waves. I'd like thrive for about 2 years and then I'd just crash and burn. And to the point where I would be like immobile and I couldn't even get out of bed for months. Like because I was a top performer in my company, my boss would let me take this time off, but it was not normal. I mean, and for me, who's a very energetic, lively, like aloha person, I've always had this in me. This is who I am. But I would be so burnt out that when I say I couldn't get out of bed, I laid in bed. I think I maybe got food once a day, maybe went to a yoga class down the block, but like that was it. And I was just not there, right? Like I
Yeah.
was, and after recovering, I would just go right back into it. And then I went through this cycle every 2 years for 8 years. So four times I hit this dark, dark low. And I know for a fact that I finally broke it in 2024. Finally. I know I finally saw it out. I had the last dark night of the soul. But I eventually also started taking Adderall to help me wake up. So now I was taking a pill to power me up and a pill to power me down. Adderall makes you very anxious if you take it, right? And that's also something I just stopped doing a year ago. But it just became this vicious cycle of that whole process, and it was bad. And then on top of that, I drank all weekend, right? I wasn't taking care of my body, mind, forget even knowing what a spirit was at that point.
So you said you finally broke it. What was the final dark night of the soul like, and what got you out of this kind of pharmaceutical loop?
Well, so I'll tell you about the third Dark Night of the Soul, but second to last one, which was right before I found Hawaii. So I knew I wanted to change. I'd been really struggling in Tampa. Again, there was nothing wrong with it, but I was around the same people doing the same things who just wanted to binge drink all weekend, and I had outgrown that party lifestyle, and a lot of them didn't, quite frankly, you know? And even when I would go out socially, I would be fine with being sober, but other people would have a problem with me not having a drink.
Yeah.
So when I came on vacation to Hawaii for the first time in 2022, I was in a really dark place at the time. I got here and it literally was like flipping a light switch, and I went. Usually it was gradual that I'd come out of this. It was like, nope, I belong there. I know this. Hawaii's going to change me. It's going to save my life. And I, this is the only decision I've ever made for myself, like truly just for myself, was to come out here. And I knew it in my heart and soul that I was meant to be out here. I knew it the second I stepped on this land. I had wanted to come out here since I was a little girl, and it took me till age 35 to finally do it. And it was everything I ever wanted and more. So that was a huge catalyst for growth and change for me because once I came out here, I had a new sales job, um, equally as stressful, different arena, right? But because I was working 9 to 5, I wasn't able to talk to people on the East Coast. By the time I would get off of work, 5, 6 o'clock, everyone would be sleeping, which caused me to have the time to finally think and be on my own because I didn't know anybody when I moved out here.
Mm.
So that was like the reset that I needed to be like, who am I without all the noise, without everybody else? Like, who do I want to be? I'm now literally out on an island in the middle of nowhere. I know barely anyone. So it was just like this whole new chance to really discover who I wanted to be and how I wanted to create my life, in my mid 30s. And I stopped drinking the day that I moved here. So that was one huge thing. I haven't had a sip of alcohol since. I'll never go back to drinking. Um, I was still taking a lot of Adderall for my sales career. I was still taking Ambien to sleep. But a year into being at this sales career that was also burning me out, I was always had this dream of quitting my job and without something lined up because I was a great salesperson. I always had something lined up. I was burnt out. I needed 6 months off, right? I needed a sabbatical, but I was never going to lose my job. So I was good at my job. So I was around all these younger kids that were all quitting their jobs and really focused on being present and the simple things in life and enjoying nature out here. And it kind of became a thing where now I was surrounded by people that were encouraging me to quit my job, which never would have happened on the East Coast, right? So I took that opportunity to take it and run with it. And I was like, I'm done. I'm just so over it. And I'm so grateful for all of these pain points, right? If my job wasn't bad enough and I wasn't so over Tampa, when I found Hawaii, it wouldn't have been as easy to move. If I wasn't at this also soul sucking career that I got here that I thought was, everybody's like, I can't believe you did it. Because I had to take these finance exams. I was selling 401ks. It was a challenging time to get out here. It was a lot of work. And everyone's like, you're just going to throw that away? And I was like, I don't care. It's a sunk cost, like I don't want that anymore. So I had no problem just throwing it away because my boss was horrible, the worst person I ever, and I was just like, I'm done. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know that I am beyond burnt out and I will never figure out what I really want for my life if I keep going down this path, right? And at this point in my life, was very successful in sales. I had tons of money saved up. Like there was no, I had the buffer. Like what was, only society's telling me to stay in this career. So essentially, I quit that job and I took a year off just to travel and rest and reset and hike and kind of find myself. And that's really where I started tapping into manifestation, actually. I had a month where I was living in Denver. I had Hawaii still as my home base, but I was traveling around. And I bought the book, The Secret, or sorry, The Magic by Rhonda Byrne, The Secret, all about gratitude, right? And I really leaned into those practices. And I think because I was in such a high state, elevated state, everything that was I was writing, I was grateful for, started coming true. Uh, Including 6 months after that, I had written a check to myself for $53,000 from the universe. Mind you, I had no job, no idea where this money was going to come from. And 6 months later, that check fell into my lap while I was in Bali getting my yoga teacher certification. Of course, like during a meditation, right? Like when I was so connected at the island of the gods. So Hawaii was the big catalyst. Then going and getting my 200-hour yoga teacher certification completely opened up a whole new world for me that I did not know was possible, that I didn't know was allowed, that I didn't know existed. I didn't know we could have compassion for ourselves. I didn't know it was okay to not be the best at everything. I didn't know that like I didn't have to work my ass off to prove my worth. Like that was the only way I knew. That was what I was around, right? Being an athlete, I was a soccer player, cross country runner. I grew up in New York. So this was just my way of living. And I go there and it's all about peace and presence and slowing down. And that's where I learned to meditate, which, as you know, has completely changed my life. And that was only a year and a half ago that I learned how to meditate, and I couldn't even sit still for 5 minutes at the time. But the Eastern world practices showed me a new way of living that, again, was not it wasn't in my realm. It wasn't in my sphere. And that's eventually how I tapped into spirituality too, through the balance of body, mind, and spirit, through getting into meditation. And then it's been a very rapid awakening ever since. So long story long, I came back from that Bali trip. This was in March 2024. I went back to Tampa for a visit. It kind of sent me into one last depressed spiral, which I thought I had all the tools in my toolbox at this point. Came back to Hawaii summer of 24 and it just got dark again and I was like, I do not understand. I don't have this crappy sales job. I live in my dream place. I have amazing friends. I'm surrounded by in paradise, right? I don't drink anymore. I eat healthier. I'm yoga certified. What else is there? That's what I'm like, and this is why it was the worst one because the other times I knew I'd been through it before and I was going to get out of it. This time I had made all the changes and I thought I broke that, right? And lo and behold, it was worse than ever. Now I don't have family around supporting me. I was lost. I was suicidal. And I now believe that I was also kind of, I don't want to say under spiritual attack, but like I was living out karmic past life stuff from mom's side, family, ancestral trauma, because I literally felt like I was turning into some of my family members and I was seeing it and experiencing it. And it wasn't me. I wasn't there. So
Hmm.
that led me down a path of being like, I need to get off the Ambien, which I was still on.
Were you still on the Adderall as well?
I was, but I wasn't taking it as much. That was more of like a performance enhancer, if you will.
Okay, got you, got you.
But I was still on the Ambien religiously every night, and I was starting to have issues with it. I was starting to have the long-term use effects of Ambien that people say. I was having memory problems.
Hmm.
I was texting in my sleep, not remembering, like having full-on conversations, not remembering what I said. Um, I wasn't even like able to fall asleep like quickly. This should knock you out. It would take me like 2 hours to fall asleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night. I have to take more. I was already at the max dose. I was having like a lot of like physical digestive issues. All of a sudden, like things were just my world was flipped upside down, and I wasn't understanding. Every therapist I talked to wasn't understanding. And for the first time in my whole entire life, and I'd gone to therapy on and off for many years, everybody in therapy was telling me to find God or to find spirituality. And I was agnostic atheist at this point. So I was starting to get a little more woo woo in Hawaii, but I wouldn't say I had any sort of spiritual practice or belief in a higher power. And that was the one resounding message that kept coming through to me. So eventually, with the help of like an outpatient program that I was in, I got off Ambien. Granted, I didn't sleep for about 2 weeks, and it was rough. And I had friends helping, like taking care of me and feed me and stuff, like because it was just I was a mess. But once I got through that part of it, I knew I was done with it forever, right? And I knew that was like a big thing that was holding me back.
Hmm.
While I was transitioning off, I had this inner knowing, if you will, like a gnosis was actually the theme of the last Dr. Joe retreat. I'll call it like a gnosis, the spiritual knowing. I was at this point working with a psychic and spiritual coach that I had met at my yoga program who when I first met her and did a reading, this was what got me to start believing in more than just myself and believing in energies. Like I didn't believe in past lives. I didn't believe in any of this stuff. Like this was all happening so quick in the last year or two. So I worked with my spiritual coach and I kept telling her I needed help because she had shown me things in the past that made me believe. And I felt like she was the only person that could help me. I knew like a therapist couldn't, my dad and other people I talked to didn't really understand it, but I was like, I need Natalie to come here. And she lives in Bali, mind you. Like, it's not like this is a close trip, but her and I talked and discussed her coming out here and doing what we call the coming home journey. And it was essentially a channeled retreat from the universe for me with her, me, our souls, and Hawaii. And she came here and we spent a full week together. And that is when I woke up.
What was the wake up? You kind of felt your soul come back to you, like you felt more embodied.
Yeah, it's hard to even say exactly what happened. So we spent a full week together with no phones, no other people. We were doing Reiki and energy healings and chakra balancing and soul readings, and she just helped me see all these deep rooted patterns that while none of them, like I said, were big traumas, I had what they sometimes say is like little T traumas or little stressors my whole life that I didn't realize, like just suddenly in my 30s just started going off like a pressure cooker. Like I had put all this pressure on myself and felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders my whole life. And I was energetically. Like she's literally said, she drew a picture of me with all these security blankets and she said, you literally just collapsed eventually. You couldn't hold them anymore. And you finally were like, there's got to be more. But before that, I lived on the surface. I had a zillion friends. I loved the, hey, how are you? The popularity. Like, I can't have a conversation that doesn't go deep into spirituality now. But she helped me unravel that. She helped me unravel patterns, from my parents and my family and, just my anxious attachment style, all these things that I knew were there, but I hadn't really gone beneath the surface. I never had the time, I never had the wherewithal, I never knew how to address it. And it took me in divine timing meeting her because even the Bali trip I met her at, like I had pushed off a million times. Like I know the universe wanted me to meet Natalie because it's completely changed my life and she's the single most transformational person in my spiritual journey. But that's when I literally was able to see more stars in the sky, see further out. Like I understood how, and I understand now how it's all connected energetically, how I'm a part of a bigger whole, and I don't need to always have so much certainty in every single thing. That was something I always had to be so planned out. And it was like, no, the beauty, if you knew everything that was going to happen, it would be boring.
Mm-hmm. And it's also all an illusion. Like we don't actually know. Even if we feel like everything's under control, we can't control people, we can't control timelines, we can't control what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. It's all just a beautiful illusion. But I'm curious to know, when you felt all of this pressure kind of release, was there something that you did, right? Because I'm thinking about people listening to this being like, I have all those security blankets over me. I have so many bricks metaphorically on my back. And they're like, I don't either know anyone who can kind of help facilitate all of this spiritual work so that they can release this. What would you tell them? Like, what is the process that you would give them to do it themselves?
Well, I also think that meditation is a huge help in that because that was another time we meditated an hour a day during my yoga training, right? And that's, like I said, where I first learned to meditate. And a lot of things came up for me. That was what kind of started this path. A lot of things came up that I had no idea were buried way beneath the surface. So I think developing a meditation practice is a big one. Also, journaling. I journal religiously, and that's something that's helped me to start understanding my feelings. And I think I listened to one of your podcasts where you were saying this too. Like when you're writing, that's when I get channeled messages too, and like they start to come to you. So, journaling, meditation, yoga, even I think that's what led me to getting yoga certified. I was already practicing yoga before this, and that was my subtle cues to spirituality. Yoga plays a huge part in my life now, but at the time, I only viewed it as the physical asana practice. But it's so much deeper than that. And when you're connecting with that, of course, you're connecting to more. Talking to other people, right? And I do think it really helps to get a reading from someone that you trust and you jive with because they can see a lot more that you probably can't. surface.
When you said you were doing meditation and you had things come up that you didn't even know were buried inside of you, how were you able to clock that and be like, oh, that's childhood trauma, or oh, that's my anxious attachment? Like, how can people be aware during their meditation practice of the information coming through to have, processed and transmute?
Yeah, I believe it's different for everyone, you know. So for me, it was specifically these guided meditations while I was at the yoga program, but then I would write everything down like that I experienced after. And just that mindfulness practice would, I don't even know, it would just bring things to the surface. Like I said, some people get visuals. I'm not someone that gets a lot. It would be thoughts and feelings for me. And I have a little bit of like clairsentience for sure. I know other people have more audio, right? Or visual. I think it varies, person to person.
Yeah, and I think that's also just to say whatever does come to your mind is a message.
Yeah.
So it's like if little you comes up and is playing with blocks, that's sometimes a message. Maybe it is to be more present with your inner child, or you kind of create the meaning too.
And
So,
just slowing down.
mhm.
Most of the East Coast of the US where I'm from, there is not a second to breathe. You don't ever pause to take a breath. You could be going a million miles an hour the way I was literally crashing into walls when I would walk around my apartment because I'd be holding the phone, a book bag, my laptop, trying to get a coffee, and literally would hit into walls like nonstop because I was not present ever. I didn't have
Mhm.
time for thoughts or messages. The universe was smacking me in the face with signs. I mean, I got rear-ended by a dump truck right before I moved from Tampa. I was ignoring all of these things. I just kept going. And it was like slowing down and just being present and intentional with your time and giving yourself a pause, not reaching for your phone for social media and like letting emotions surface, I think is really important. Like I said, something that I had neglected doing the majority of my life.
Yeah, and I love that you talked about, being yoga certified too, because a lot of people think that yoga is just for stretching or just for movement, but it's so deeply spiritual because I don't know about you, but when I do yoga, I tap into like my ligaments and I can see inside of my body. And, we're asked to hold certain poses, but it's how can you be calm under duress? There's so many parallels to like yoga practice and life in general. And when your
Exactly.
body's shaking, can you be present with like what your body's communicating to you? Do you push too hard in that yoga pose, or do you listen and kind of flow and move with your body? So I love that you do yoga. There's so many spiritual elements of that. But when it comes to meditation, you're super into Joe Dispenza's work, which is kind of what connected us too when we were talking about it. I love Joe Dispenza. He has truly changed just my perspective of what's possible in life in terms of the quantum field and quantum manifestation and the law of assumption, being her now, being open to different timelines at any moment, simply based on your emotional charge and, yeah, what's possible emotionally. So, how would you say that Joe Dispenza's work has kind of helped you with timeline jumping?
Joe Dispenza's work has changed the game for me. So when I talk about yogic meditation and mindfulness, it's a lot more being the observer and watching your thoughts, right? Like kind of settling the mind, peaceful. And I agree with what you said about yoga. And even Dr. Joe had gotten into his whole meditation and mystical practice through yoga initially. He talks about that. So I think that's always like the easier way when you're very wired into the 3D world to get started. But his meditations are very different, as you know. And I try to explain it to a lot of my friends outside of this realm. They don't really understand it, but his is about being the quantum creator of our lives, right? If you change your personality, you change your personal reality. So it's all about rewiring all your nervous system, balancing he calls it energy centers, but it's your chakras, whatever words you want to use, right? And because he puts everything in such scientific terms, in layman's terms, it makes people who aren't into the woo, right, and the mysticism start to believe. And that's why he's developed such a big community and such a big following because he shows people how to heal themselves from the inside out. So when I first got into his work, I didn't actually love his meditations. I'll be honest with you. Before I went to the retreats, I kind of didn't like them at all. They felt long, drawn out. They felt kind of like I just didn't get it. I didn't fully know how to embody the practice because I didn't understand it. And he's at his retreats, he's really big on teaching the fine details of everything. Every 15 minutes, he says, turn to the person next to you and explain, so that if you understand it and you can explain,
Mm.
you're processing that thought, you're understanding. And if you can understand it conceptually, then when you go into your meditation, you drop the mind, you already know what to do, and then you're able to, let go of yourself, focus on nobody, no time, no space, no matter, go into the quantum field, and that's where we create. So I always talk about his meditations as being more like yeah, like an energetic exchange, like an energetic air. So when I was practicing his meditation, you have to do a progressive retreat before you attend his week-long retreat. So I had signed up last year for his July Denver week-long advanced retreat, which meant I had to do the prereqs online, which was about 30 hours of coursework. What I was saying that felt a little bit like boring for me initially. But the reason I signed up for that specific retreat was I was now running for this Ms. Hawaii pageant in June, 2 weeks before the 2 weeks after the show was the retreat.
Yeah, no, Joe Dispenza has completely changed my life. I mean, he's been a constant on my entire spiritual journey. And I like what you said about him kind of making it a no-brainer scientifically so that any skeptics, they can't argue. They can't argue with the mechanics of what happens when you shift the mind, when you shift how you think, feel, speak, look, act. Naturally, it's going to shift your personality. Naturally, if you shift the way you operate in this reality, you're going to shift what's possible for you. You're going to shift who who can have access to your light now based on how you're operating, based on what you're transmitting out into the world. And so I love that he kind of coined that your personality affects your personal reality. It's undeniable. And again, the thoughts that you think, I mean, this is everything, because if you think thoughts of dis-ease, you wake up and you think of all the sensations in your body that don't feel good. What's happening as a conscious creator? You're just putting energy towards pain. You're putting energy towards lack and limitation and things that are not working out in your reality. But if you shift the focus, you become no body, no mind. He even says, if you wake up with amnesia every single day, I mean, your life will probably be great, because you're not living in a past story.
Yes.
And your body becomes this new mind, right? Where it kind of becomes this automatic mind where you are living in the past. So you have to kind of break that and train the body to become a new mind. And that looks like new patterns, new actions that you kind of have to like force, because you know what they say about like objects in motion stay in motion.
Yeah.
But if you're not in motion, it's a lot harder to go from like this dense person that you've been being into that new self. But it does. It starts with like the small actions. Okay, let me prepare my clothes out on my dresser and do make sure that I do 5 minutes of working out tomorrow. But
Mhm.
when you start doing your squats or whatever, you're not going to want to stop after 5 minutes. So it's that momentum of being like, okay, I'll go 20. And so
Totally.
it's undeniable, his work. And he has even said that he has a lot of skeptics tell him like, oh, it's pseudoscience. He's like, but there are so many studies now that you can't you can't deny that people are walking out of my retreats and meditations healed of like either it be mental health issues or it be physical health ailments that are completely gone based on them tapping into that quantum state of new life, new energy, new
I know.
momentum.
It's crazy when you listen to some of the stories of transformation. It's really wild. So for me, the really the start of where this like really kicked off, right? Like I said, was going into this retreat and the pageant being 2 weeks before. So I was practicing his meditations leading up to the pageant. And mind you, by the way, pageantry was never something I had on my radar or planned to do. This came to me through once I was in finally embodying and aligned with like and embracing my divine feminine, that's when this opportunity dropped into my lap. I can assure you this was never like a goal of mine. This was just a little thing that fell into my plate. And I was like, all right, I'll try it, right? So I was using his meditations amongst other things. I was working with my spiritual coach. I had made these like visualizations on AI. This is a fun tip I love to give people for manifesting. I use Grok AI and Meta AI to take whatever I'm trying to manifest and make a picture of me already in that. So 2 weeks before the pageant, I took a photo of me and I said, like, hey, put me in a black dress with a Ms. Hawaii sash and a crown. And I don't know what else I said on the stage with some flowers and some silver earring. And I made this picture. I made a few pictures like 2 weeks before, saved. Come to find out when I do, which we all know, spoiler alert, I end up winning, but there's more to this with the Joe Dispenza. But later, when I look at the photos after the day after, they're identical to what happened on. I mean, people will, I'll show them side by side and they'll ask me which one's the AI. Like,
Wow.
it's pretty freaking wild. So I was using those AI visualizations to tune into winning with tuning into new potentials meditation that I was doing. So I was going through the whole process where first you go into the quantum field, you disconnect from yourself and your body, and then he always describes it as you send the signal out with your brain, your coherent brain, right? Whatever your intention is, you put that out into the field and you draw it in with your coherent heart. So the higher, more elevated your emotions can be, awe, joy, gratitude, right? Ecstasy, whatever, the more you can feel that, the quicker and easier it is if you're already in the field. So that's exactly what I did with the pageant. I had already experienced the win meditating 3 days before. Like I felt like I won. I visualized myself on stage, my name being called, all my friends cheering, them crowning me dropping to my knees and crying and having the whole and I did. I cried right then and there. And it wasn't even, oh, I need to win this beauty pageant. It was this is a byproduct of all this deep inner healing work I have done and all the things I left behind and who I've become. That's what like the stepping on stage was for me, really like representative of. So it was just wild because when I won, I had no reaction on stage. I was so like, huh, like okay, great, and it was so anticlimactic for me because it had already happened. Like it was done. It was done 3 days before it even happened in the 3D, right? And yeah, it was so funny because I also realized I think one of the other reasons it was so easy to tune into that and manifest it, besides knowing how to through his meditations, was that I also didn't cling so tightly to the outcome. I had a conversation with myself like a few days before the retreat being like, am I going to be upset if I don't win this, right? Because a lot of my friends were like, you put so much time, money, and energy into it, like, or isn't it going to suck if you lose? And I was like, honestly, for the first time in my life, I don't need to compete with anyone or myself. Like, and I realized it's not it like yeah, maybe I'd be upset that day, right? But fast forward to the next day, I look around. I live in my dream apartment across the street from the ocean, right? Like full pano view. I already feel like a queen. I already lived the life of my dreams. Nothing, it was just like, whatever. It's one little thing that the universe didn't want for me. And there's another divine plan out there. So I think that not being so attached to the outcome made me have less nerves on stage. I had already mentally rehearsed it. It was just like, poof, it was done. It was easy. I had so much fun. Like on stage, I really did. I had a blast with it. And then 2 weeks later, I went to the Dr. Joe retreat. And just as I visualized, I was telling everybody, hey guys, I'm Miss Hawaii. And it just became this snowball effect where I also got to meet him, which I knew would happen. And my friends were convinced I wouldn't get to. I got to do an interview with his team and they loved the whole story and are using it on their stories of transformation. So I don't even, again, really care about or need the title or a crown. It's just about how can I use this title for good and share like this journey that I've been on and how quickly. I really think I stand for somebody that can quantum leap like that, right? Because I was not this pageant girl. I was like a tomboy, right? I was an athlete. Like this was not me. And all these things started to shift once I started believing in myself. Once I believed in more outside of me. Once I got to Hawaii. Like this has been the snowball effect of like we're gonna shake out whatever is not working for you. And then once you do, when I'm clear, I'm the manifesting queen. Like it's easy.
Mm-hmm. And you have to answer the call, right? Because if you didn't answer that inner call to go to Hawaii, sometimes the external does prompt that change. The
Yeah.
external being like whether it be a place or a person that you feel called to see or meet. Or even in my case, I kept seeing this visual like, no, you're platinum blonde in the reality that you love. And I'm like, okay, we're going
Cool.
back. Like, so I have 3 bleaches in, we're halfway there. But like these things, they're calling you forward because it is like a future timeline pulling you forward. So sometimes people will be like, oh, it's just aesthetic, or oh, it's just surface level. But no, places hold energies, people hold energies. One other person, like this moment in time right now, like we activate each other
Yeah.
for like we have different downloads that we're kind of sharing with each other that could be key pivotal moments for us a week from now. Like we don't know why certain universes are asked to collide like that. So I love that you answered the call to go to Hawaii. How did the pageant even come up in your sphere? Like, how did you magnetize that to you? Like, what? How did that happen?
Girl, I'm still not even sure. So, okay, so a year after I got my yoga teacher certification, so January of 2025, I actually went back and assistant taught at that same program. Not thinking it could be possibly as magical and transformative as it was the first time. Because of no expectations, this is probably why it was even more amazing and magical. I got to, now lead the class and show all these new students, like, I knew what they were going to embark on. This is not, I just tell everybody this. This was a life changing, the 3 weeks changed my entire trajectory of my life. And you're not just learning to teach yoga, it's so much more, like we were talking about earlier. It's the body, mind, spirit. It's a path to spirituality. It's about connecting to so much more. It's about being in harmony with nature, the diet, the philosophy, the meditation, the mantras, the ritual. Everything that goes with yoga is just beyond when you really, really embrace it. And obviously, I
Mhm.
drank the Kool-Aid, as you can tell
Yeah.
with it after show. And that's okay because now I can use my salesperson personality to sell these like holistically healthy things to the world. And that's what I'm doing, right? But so I went back to Bali last January, a year ago at this time. I was there. And Bali shook me like it always does. But by the end of those 3 weeks, I was a different person. I was literally things I thought were manifesting in front of me 2 steps later. Like, no exaggeration. I had scrolls on my journal that was like the wallpaper on the wall of a spa I arrived at. Like, it was tripping. I manifested a soulmate, and I had wrote that down during a full moon ritual, and just like all these things were transpiring, and I was very, by far at that point, the most intuitive, in tune, healthy. Everything was in alignment. I was also in the island of the gods, right, where it shows you a lot. And I came back from that trip. Um, Real quick, a side note on the soulmate. It was not the person I'm meant to be with, but it was like a karmic person I've shared past lives with that actually is the reason that I no longer have an anxious attachment style. Um, Maybe a story for another day because it's kind of a long one. But essentially, with him in a week, I figured out all my patterns and I didn't run away from the issues by dating other people. I just like leaned into them, cried, meditated, journaled, worked with energy healers, and I got through 35 years of feeling this way, right? And that just changed me completely. I stepped into, about a year ago, I deleted all my dating apps. I stepped into this place of like full radical self-love in a way that I thought I had, but I never had experienced before. Now, for the first time in my life, like, I'm not dating. I used to date a lot, and I used to really be trying to fill a void.
Yeah.
Another. And I don't even want it at all now. Like, I'm so focused on my mission, and it's like I finally have clarity. But so anyway, I came back from that trip. I got back to Hawaii in March of last year, and I attended the a different Miss Hawaii pageant, a larger pageant than the one that I won. And I was wearing this like neon green showstopper dress, and I was just everything. I was intuiting my whole day. Like, I'd wake up, I'd know who I was gonna see, I know what I was gonna eat. Like, I just had all these little like downloads that were constantly coming to me. And I knew as soon as I got dressed that someone was gonna say, "You should be on that stage." And sure enough, as soon as I went downstairs, the building people said it, the Uber driver said it, everywhere I walked said it. And then somebody nominated me at that show for the one that I did.
Oh, wow. So you need to get nominated to even be
Yeah.
considered.
Yep. You get nominated and then you apply to like be part of an area. So I was Miss Moana, which is a sector of Honolulu. And then you enter, and do the actual competition.
Whoa. Okay. So just based on your aura, people were like, Miss Hawaii.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like glowing, right? Like, I had done this work. I was in my time. It just came to me. The irony about this whole thing too, I will say, is I got rid of almost all of my dresses and heels about a year before that because this is as dressed up as I am in Hawaii. Hawaii is casual. So it's just like funny to have gone on this whole journey and then end up running for Miss Hawaii and then it be like the one time in my life that I actually couldn't care less about external validation. That's when I got it.
Wow. And what was it like to even do the pageant? Like, I'm thinking about Miss Congeniality, the speeches, the little talents. I don't know. I don't know. Like, what was it like for you? Was it 2 weeks of like,
Oh, it was a lot more.
yeah, what was it
It was
like?
months of preparation.
Oh,
It was a
wow.
lot more challenging than I thought. So what you're probably thinking is what I thought before I entered in this.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd go up there, look pretty. It's a lot more than that. There's like, you have to walk like a model. You have to sashay your hips. You got to walk in 6-inch stilettos. You have to have the right dress, the right huge blinged out. I mean, things that you would never own outside of pageantry, right? Like super glammed up. Um, you do walking practice. Like most people have a pageant coach. I had a pageant coach, so I practiced like twice a week. Um, it actually took me out of my center in a lot of ways because I'm so grounded now. I do, as a yogi, I can't condone walking in 6-inch stilettos. It's bad for you. And it was a lot of like misalignment for me, but I was already committed, so I went through with it. But there were many times I almost dropped out. Um, and then the other thing you have to practice for is the onstage questions and the interview. So, and we didn't have to do a talent, thank goodness, but it was rated on evening gown, swimsuit, one onstage question, and an interview that was done the day before.
Mm.
And actually, most people were really nervous for the interview. As you can tell, I like to talk. I was super excited for the interview, and I won Best Interview.
Oh,
And
wow.
then even the day of the pageant, we had like a whole handful of questions that they could be ones we got, so we were like a little bit prepared. And then you just pick one on stage. Right before I went on, I knew what question I was gonna get, and like I already like I just knew, and I got it, and I just like smiled on my inside and like nailed the question. And literally, I walked off the stage, and that's when I knew that like I had it in the bag because I like
Wow.
the question was, what does success mean to you? Which was such a perfect question for me to get because my whole definition and how I define myself as being successful has changed over the last few
What,
years.
how did you answer that?
I said, I remember it exactly. Um, Success means living in alignment with who you really are and not just who the world told you to be. It's waking up with a sense of inner peace in your heart and clarity in your direction. I know that I feel the most successful when I'm so deeply connected to myself and my inner world that I'm able to connect much more deeply to nature, to other people, and ultimately connected to a greater purpose. Mahalo.
Oh, so you just answer it like that. It's just
Yeah.
like a one sentence thing. It's
It's
not
got to
like,
be 30 to 60 seconds.
wow, okay. How long is the interview?
It's only 5 minutes. It went by so fast.
I can imagine. What are the kind of questions they asked you in the interview?
What is your platform? What's something unique about you? You have to have a so you have to have a platform that you stand behind, like whether it's like a nonprofit or a fundraiser or a cause. So actually my platform was sharing about I'm writing a book, right? And it's sharing about my spiritual journey, my transformation, and sharing yoga and Eastern world practices and how I think that should be incorporated more here in the Western world.
Okay, so a cause that you stand for, that you're
Yeah,
bringing to the world. Okay.
right, right.
That's so funny. The only time that I've ever done any sort of pageant thing was I was just invited to kind of apply for one, and it was fun. I did the walking thing. I think it was like a month of, I don't know, I just tried it. But I had like a little interview process too, and they didn't choose me to go on to the next level because they actually said the fact that you walked in with this water next to you was not poised. So you're not poised, and I just remember being like, that's crazy. It was so offensive, but I can understand.
Yeah.
I can understand. Like, you don't want to have like this beautiful girl in a dress walking into the interview with this giant blender bottle. So I understood, but also I just need to be hydrated all the time. So that's
Girl, I feel you.
that is so cool. And so, how many people were you competing against in the pageant?
12 people.
12 people. And were those people that had been accepted from another like group of women too? Like how many people applied to Miss Hawaii?
I don't know how many actually applied. Not
Okay.
privy to all that information. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but yeah, it was an interesting experience. What I will say is I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I won. Would I run having known what I know now?
Mm.
Probably not. It just wasn't in full alignment with like who I am and what I stand for as far as like, I don't believe in doing things specifically because somebody tells me to do it this way. And that's what a lot of what of pageantry is.
Yeah.
And so much more comfortable in bare feet and yoga clothes than a ball
Yeah.
gown, you know?
Yeah, and I think that people hearing that being like, "Well, then why are you so proud of being Miss Hawaii?" It's not necessarily about like the accomplishment. It's more about look at what I can do when I want to do anything. It's like I
Yeah.
can just do anything, even things that are misaligned. If I choose to manifest it, I can, And I think that's the point is like you did something because you were called to do it and you
Yeah.
literally took it to the end,
And
owned it and was like, "Okay, well, I don't want to continue pageantry for the rest of my life, but look at me. I'm still Miss Hawaii."
I feel too that because I now have this title, it holds more weight in conversation. Like, even you and I talking, that probably caught your interest, right? That caught Dr.
Yeah.
Drew's interest. It's connected me with all these people that I wouldn't have connected with, like in so many different ways for interviews, for modeling opportunities, for spokesperson thing. And it's like, that's what I want to do. I don't really want to stand on stage and be a pretty princess, but I would love to use this title to share my journey, right? Like, I also do like retreats and hiking tours. So, like, how cool is it to say, take a tour of Hawaii with Ms. Hawaii, right? And,
Yes. Oh my God.
it's just an interesting thing. And my soul likes to dabble in a little bit of everything. It's check it off the box and move on. And additionally, I really believe in, I've always been someone that makes things happen quickly, more because in the old version of me, it was I worked my tail off to get things done and I believed in myself and I would make things happen. Now it's more in a place of receivership, right? So I really like to what I've been told by a lot of people is that it's really inspirational because this wasn't something I did and practiced my whole life, right? Like it just happened really quick. So I'm a big believer in showing people that like every possibility exists and we can shift really fast because I've done that so many times in the last few years. And it's like we can be anything that we want at any time. I can be rolling in the mud doing a Spartan race one day and I can be on a pageant stage the next day. Like, we don't have to like fit ourselves into any of these boxes or cliches, you know?
Yeah. Would you say that you're currently experiencing divine synchronicities every day, like magic, or would you say that there are some days that are kind of you feel off, or what?
I would say I pretty regularly, at least weekly, experiencing big synchronicities, and I would contribute a lot of that to the Dr. Joe Dispenza work. So, what we didn't talk about yet, and I don't know if you want to dive in on that, me
I'd love
curing
to.
insomnia at that retreat was an added bonus that I never, ever, ever thought I would saw. That is a possibility I did not think existed.
Because of Joe Dispenza's retreat.
Yeah, so that first retreat that I went to in July when I got interviewed about the Ms. Hawaii thing, that's when I really got to like learn his practices, understand the concepts, be in the energy of 2,000 plus people in a room meditating together, which, just amplifies all of it, right? All of our intentions coming together in like pure love. And I can't say enough good things about his retreat. It was a life-changing experience, lifelong soul friends. But he works it up so like your whole body is balanced, your hormones are balanced, your energy is balanced. You know how to go into the fields, you know how to tune into your heart. By the end of the week, you're really good at meditating. And take me who a year and a half prior couldn't meditate for 5 minutes. I'm now meditating for 5+ hours at a time at his retreats, like it's nothing. And I've told a lot of people this because I hold these like energy activation workshops and wellness things here in Oahu, and they're like, I can do this if she can, right? And that's like again, this is why I want to share. Like I'm coming at like being the most 3D anxious, wired up, like intense person. If I can chill out and slow down, like anybody can do this. Truly, anybody
Mhm.
can. And that's why he has his stories of transformation, to show that. So he has a meditation called Changing Boxes, where essentially you start out, in that box of who you are right now, and you have this one nagging issue that you want to put in the box and leave it behind. And you want to step out into this other possibility in the field where that doesn't exist anymore. That problem is not there. Like you said, the blonde hair you doesn't have insomnia, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So for me, it was the insomnia. Granted, I was off sleeping pills at this point. I still wasn't sleeping well. I have very broken sleep up until this year or these last 6 months. I would fall asleep really late, like 3, 4 a.m. sometimes. And I was like, whatever, I guess life's good. If that's the worst thing I have, I'll deal with it, right? Like I'm out of corporate America. I can work on my own schedule. So be it. That's kind of the mentality I had. And I quite frankly never thought it would go away. I really was surrendered to it and was just like, all right, this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life. And it sucks, but it is what it is. Until I got to that changing boxes meditation and I I just like knew what to do, right? I lost myself in the field and there's a possibility out there where I do sleep like a normal person, and that was my intention. I sleep early, easily, naturally, and I wake up early, easily with energy. And that was another thing. Like I would snooze my alarm forever. I'd be groggy for the first 3 hours I was awake. Like it was crazy. And I knew during that meditation that it was gone. Like I felt the shift in my energetic field, cried like a baby. And I told everybody at that retreat because they had all knew about my sleep issues. I knew. I was like, we just cured my insomnia. I know we did.
Whoa. Just energetically. Wow.
It was because, yeah, I finally found the belief that was out there, that I got rid of that belief that I was, I was so unique that I was the only person in the world that would never sleep like a normal person, right? Like I had that deeply rooted because my family doesn't sleep well. As I got older, it kept getting worse. Like I just had this belief and I used to say it all the time. Yeah, I don't sleep. Yeah, my sleep sucks. And even at that retreat, I was surrounded by the right people. This was a big part of my whole evolution, right? Just coming to Hawaii and surrounding myself with people who believe in more, who are positive, who are like-minded. And everybody there was like, "No, Nicole, you are asleep. Yeah, that was the old you. This the new you who's going to leave this retreat as a good sleeper." And they kept correcting me even when I would slip up. And then it finally happened. And I will say that the first like 2, 3 days, I still went to bed really late, and I was like, ah, crap, it didn't work, right? And I came back from that retreat and for the first time in my entire life, falling asleep 10 p.m., waking up on my own naturally with the sunrise before my alarm, jumping out of bed to do my meditation. And
Wow.
yeah, it's been really good ever since. I went back, as you know, I think to another one of his retreats recently, and my sleep right before that was getting a little bit like not as consistent because I think if you're not I mean, I know if you're not doing the work consistently, your old patterns are going to
Yeah.
resurface. That's what started to happen to me a little bit. And I went back and even better this time. Like I'm sleeping literally better than ever. It's like magic. It's hard to believe, you know? But I'm not the same person that went into those meditations. That's not the same person that started 2025.
Yeah. And I think that for people listening to this, they're like, if they have pressing issues or things and patterns that they just can't overcome, it really does have to do with the NLP, neuro linguistic programming, of continuously through repetition building in a new pattern of belief. Like you have to look at your story instantly, and when it comes up and be like, no, like, I have this running story for myself. I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert. I'm like, does it serve me to say I'm an introvert when I literally want to be like super famous and out there and extroverted and talking with people on the internet? No, it doesn't serve me to say I'm an
Yeah.
introvert, but I default to that programming and belief because I love being isolated. I love my alone time. I love being in my hermit mode. But that doesn't have to mean something about you. So look at like whatever you're creating your behaviors as and defining them as like what they mean about you, because that's kind of, you know, where you will see your beliefs come up. So I love that you were able to reprogram that because it doesn't serve you to believe you're an insomniac. It doesn't serve you. So
Right. But it has to come from the subconscious because it's not, and that's the problem that a lot of people don't get past. Like that's why you're able to do it in meditation because you're getting out of the analytical mind, right? Like the thinking neocortex where you're tied to all that. That's only on the surface, and that's what I was doing forever. And I had tried other meditations before too, but again, his stuff, the way he teaches it, the way if you really understand the process, anyone can do this. I
Yeah.
guarantee it. Like I will put my money on that, right? Like I've seen people walk out of wheelchairs. I've seen people heal from cancer. Like he's got hundreds of thousands of stories around the world of this. So, it's anything is possible. It really is. And I will say I sound like a salesperson for Dr. Joe, by the way. I make no
I
money off,
sound like it too because his
but I
work is
love the guy,
incredible.
But like I've never experienced the type of connectivity to self, to source, to other people the way I have at that retreat. We should go to a retreat together one day.
I would love that. You know what? I'm like, this girl is drinking the same Kool-Aid as me because I love it. But I've never been to one of his retreats before. So yeah, that's a plan.
It's
I
powerful.
accept. But yeah, no, I love this because the subconscious mind, I have recently heard this, is the womb of creation. And I was
Yep.
like, wow, that's so beautiful because what does that mean? It means that's where like the fertile ground is. That's where the seeds are planted. And how do you access that? Through the theta brainwave states. So, and delta. So when you're sleeping and just upon awakening, right before you go to bed and right when you wake up in the morning, don't rush to grab your phone and get out of that. No, see what you're thinking about in those moments. Are you thinking, oh, another day on this? Okay, you need to reprogram that. So yeah, his work is incredible. This whole podcast episode was incredible, and I love that you're an example and a walking, living testament to what can happen when you believe in yourself, when you believe in the little cues and divine synchronicities that are guiding you into a new area, new territory, Miss Hawaii. So, how would you help? What would you tell people who kind of want to experience as much magic as you? Any last words about being in a magical state of existence consistently?
I think there's no limits, first of all, for anybody. There absolutely anything is like I literally think I'll be like flying and levitating in a few years. And this is coming from someone that was not, like I said, spiritual woo-woo at all before, and now I'm like full send on it. So just trust, have an open mind and an open heart. And I will say my biggest thing the practice, like I mentioned, that even before I got into meditation, having a daily gratitude practice will change your life. That before I even got into meditation or yoga, that was single-handedly the thing it's very grounded, right? It's just being thankful for what you already have and what's to come. And that has totally reshaped my life. So that's like a big recommendation that I give to a lot of people.
Gratitude practice.
Hmm.
Yeah. What is the worst advice that you've ever received?
This is just the way it is. Stay stuck in your job. That's what everybody does. This is the way it's supposed to be. Like I've heard that oh, don't quit your job. It'll be career suicide. Good, kill my career because I'm going to kill myself if not,
Literally.
Like,
Yeah. What's the best advice that you've ever received?
oh, wow. Just you stumped me on that one. Like I've had like my whole like last 2 years has been like endless advice from, oh, I'll tell you what. This now I just remembered it. One of my yoga teachers, when I first went to Bali and I first got yoga certified, and I really, really, really struggled with meditation. Like I said, I couldn't sit still. I felt like bugs were crawling on out of my skin. I was like, like tripping out, and I'm like, I'd open my eyes and peek and be like, "Why? How is everybody else still laying here without moving?" Right? Like, it was so challenging for me, and I used to beat myself up over that. Right? Like because I used to be able to do everything, but when it came to slowing down, I didn't know how to force that. Right? Like I had to learn how to surrender. That's one of them, learning how to surrender. But I didn't even understand that. But what this one that I'm getting at is Swami Ji, my yoga teacher. I went up to him and I told him this, and he looked at me and he said, "My dear, you are a moving person, and that's okay." And it was like just these liberating words that
Wow.
meditation doesn't have to be just a laying down stillness. Dr. Joe even has walking meditations, which I absolutely love. For some people like me, manifesting generator, Gemini, I'm active, right?
Yeah, I'm a Manny Gen too. And I was
Okay.
wondering, I was like, she must have Virgo or Gemini energy.
Yeah.
So material. Okay.
But it just like freed me from these shackles of my beliefs that like everything doesn't have to be cookie cutter for everybody. And my meditation practice could start with me doing like walking meditations or moving I do dancing meditations all the time now, which is like, I mean, just me dancing and going crazy as I'm walking down the street. And I don't like, I think like that advice of just it was more specific to me, right? But I think it applies to, I've told a lot of other friends of mine that aren't into meditation that, and they were like, whoa, what's a moving meditation? Like people don't know there's all these other, anything where you're being fully present and conscious and intentional is really, you can wash your dishes and it could be a meditation,
I
you
was
know?
gonna say that. Yeah, and I mean that's what meditation is. It's full presence, full immersion into the senses, into the physical. I love that. And I love that permission that he gave you. My love, you're a moving person. Like, oh, yes, thank you for
That's
seeing
it.
me. Yeah.
So simple, but I never would have thought of that or gave myself permission to just, like do what's right for me because that's what I always thought you were supposed to do things and I always did things right, right? But it's like we can't be so I was like this. There's everything. It was tense always. Let
We
it
can't
go.
be so boxed in. We need to change the boxes.
Yes.
What would you tell people who want to work with you, who are interested in your world, immersing themselves in your energy?
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested, please reach out. I'm on Instagram at Ms. Hawaii, MS Hawaii 2025. And you can DM me. I have island tours, I do retreats, I do speaking engagements, wellness workshops. I'm hosting my first couple of retreats this year, which I'm so excited to launch. I teach some yoga. I do manifestation coaching, and I'm writing a book. So I'm looking to get a publisher this year. I'm in the process of writing the book proposal right now, but it's all about escaping the rat race and manifesting your dream life, right? And I use my story as like a guide, incorporating all the practices. So you can reach me there. The name of my business is 6 Degree Soul. So www number six degree DEGREE soul SOUL.com. And I even love just talking to people. I've had so many people reach out to me ever since the Dr. Joe transformation went live because it blasted out to like millions of people around the world. And I've had people DM me, and I don't mind like just chatting sometimes too if there's something I can help or flavor I can add to a conversation or a different perspective. I'm happy to because I know when I was in the thick of it, like I thought I was so stuck and I would never get out, and I'm living a life truly beyond my wildest dreams now. Uh, but yeah, that, and then even when I went back to my second retreat, I had tons of people coming up to me and they're like, "Oh my God, you're Miss Hawaii. Your story was such an inspiration." So it's truly just, I know I listened to one of your podcasts too, you talking about this. It's all about sharing the story because everyone's going to resonate with somebody else. And I'm a very open person. If someone can benefit from my pain and turn that into our power, that it was all worth something, you know? And I truly feel that all of my pains led me to exactly where I am, and I wouldn't take back a single thing. Like it all happened the way exactly as it was supposed to. Yeah, it was really freaking rough for a while, but yeah, I want to help empower and inspire other people to make the changes that they want because anything really is possible.
That's beautiful. And I'm just curious, what is 6 Degree Soul? Where did that come from?
It actually was, I guess I wouldn't have even known this word back then, but during COVID, I was having all these like business downloads, and a lot of them were in relation to retreats and wellness. I didn't know what, but I knew I wanted to eventually start my own business. The only reason I didn't was I didn't have any clear, cohesive ideas. But I wrote a million things, and this idea came to me. People always said I've always been a connector of people, right? Like they knew me as the mayor of South Tampa when I was in Tampa. As soon as I moved to Hawaii, they started calling me the social nucleus of Oahu. I've always just been like really a good networker. So people would say it's like the 6 degrees of Nicole Miranda
That's so
sometimes.
funny.
Because
Okay.
there was like the 1 degree of like everywhere they go, so I had a mutual friend, right? So I somehow just came with this name 6 Degree Soul, and then I made the logo, and it's like a spiral sun, and spiral, of course, means aligning with God. It just like all kind of goes. It was this idea from 6 years ago, and then when I started my business this last year, I was like, that's the name. I've had it since forever.
I love it. I just pulled up your
Now
website.
yeah, it
Beautiful.
takes on it's websites in review because I have a lot of things I've added. There's been, like I said, so many changes. It started purely as a tour and yoga business, and now it's like retreats and speaking and book and like all these other avenues. But yeah, working on updating that. But everything's in my link tree too. And like I said, just
Well, thank you so much, Nicole, Miss Hawaii. This has been so beautiful. I think your story is going to inspire so many people. And yeah, thank you, goddesses. And we will see you next week for the next episode. Bye.
thank you.